Hey everybody, I'm Connor, that's Doug, and this is the Bethel School District Presents podcast, and we have a fantastic show. We are once again on location. We are at Spanaway Middle School today, aren't we, Doug?
We are. We're joined by a round table of amazing 8th graders and their teacher. Kelly Evans is an 8th grade English and 8th grade STEAM teacher, specifically for a course called Medical Detectives. Kelly, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit more about this class?
Absolutely, Doug. In this class, it's called Medical Detectives, and students act as real-life medical detectives. In the beginning of the course, they learn how to take patient vital signs and practice on each other, learning how to take pulse, the respiratory rate, and temperature and blood pressure. After that, they learn what the average and normal temperatures and pulse and blood pressure and everything is for their patients, and they compare that to the data that they got to determine if their levels were normal, high, or low, because vital signs can be a clue that something is wrong with the patient and help medical professionals try to determine where they should start in making a diagnosis.
That is really fascinating. Kelly, what else are they learning? What else do they have in store this year?
Later in this class, they learn about various diseases. There's 14 different common diseases such as E. coli, the flu, the common cold, measles, etc. They learn about what patients' signs and symptoms are with these diseases. And then they utilize their disease dictionary that they make and try to diagnose a fictitious patient based on the signs and symptoms the patient presents with, based on a patient interview, and based on a physical exam notes that they're given. Finally, after that, they learn about neurology and the brain. They learn about the nervous system and build models of neurons, and end that with a upcoming dissection of a sheep brain where they have to label the structures and functions of the brain.
Wow. What a fun way to kind of tackle a pretty heady...
No pun intended.
Yeah, for that sheep it is. What a fun way to tackle a pretty serious subject matter and kind of have a good time with it. As Doug mentioned in the lead up to this, we have a full roundtable of students. So before we dive into hearing from those students about what they like about this class, let's just have you guys introduce yourself. So we'll go around the table.
Hi, my name's Hannah.
Hi, I'm Yasmin.
Hi, my name is Lyric.
Hi, my name is Kyler.
And again, thank you all for joining us. Hannah, what's been your favorite part of the Medical Detectives course?
My favorite part of this Medical Detectives course has been all the hands-on activities we've got to do. For example, one of my favorite activities has been our most recent one, which is the neurons model, where we got certain materials to work with, and we got a 3D stop-motion neural model. I feel like this hands-on activity is very important because I'm a visual learner, and I felt like Ms. Evans incorporated that into our learning. Not only did I learn about neurons from drawing it and labeling it, but I also learned about it from making that model.
That is amazing. And Connor, I don't know about you, but 8th grade was not like this when I was in 8th grade.
No. Yasmin, same question for you. What's been the most fun part so far?
My favorite part about this class has to be all the fun activities that Miss Evans has us doing. Like when we were doing the bacteria assignment, I loved how we got to walk around the school, pick whatever place we wanted to, and just pick up bacteria from there. I also was very intrigued to look at the results about our samples, and I loved how we were able to learn about different bacterias and how to prevent them here at school.
So, Yasmin, quick follow-up. Did it weird you out at all to find out that there was bacteria growing everywhere you are here?
Oh, yes. Like, for example, our water fountain, I usually drink from there after lunch, and that was one of the highest, that had the most bacteria, and now I carry a water bottle every day.
Very smart.
Lyric, let's go over to you. What's been one of your favorite parts of the class so far?
One of my favorite parts about this class is when we all had to write down like certain bacterias, and then we got fake patients and worked with them and talked about what was wrong with the patients.
I guess that's really the detective part of the class. Kyler, what about you? What have you been enjoying the most so far?
The part that I've enjoyed most about this class was similar to Lyrics. It was, we had fake patients. We had to ask them questions. Actually, we acted everything out. There were 3 roles. There was a note taker, a question asker, and what Miss Evans called the locker inner. We asked questions to the patient, and we used the notes we took to diagnose the patient, which for me, I had Ben. Ben had Lyme disease, and really that was my favorite case so far.
I'm just impressed already with the level of science we're talking about with you all. And I'm wondering, has anybody been inspired career path-wise from this class? And Connor, let's be up first on the show. Let's have a show of hands. And we do have one. Lyric. Can I ask you about that?
If Miss Evans never showed us the emergency room videos, I probably would have never thought about being a nurse or like working in a hospital. But now that I've seen what people go through, things that happen to them, it kind of like showed me that's something I would do.
That is awesome to hear. And Kelly, over to you. I know you've been inspiring students for many years. Has this class kind of offered you even more opportunity at that to see them looking at careers in the future?
I think so. I think with this particular course, it's really applicable to students because all of them at some point in their lives have been sick or injured or know their loved ones who have been sick or injured. And so they already have a little bit of buy-in and background understanding of what it's like to go to the hospital, what it's like to go to the doctor, what it's like to get their vitals taken. And so I think that background, we build upon it and fill in some gaps that they don't already know. And then they can start to see themselves potentially considering some of those careers in the future, like Lyric mentioned. And we do have plans later to bring in some medical professionals to come and speak with the students about their jobs as well.
This is obviously a very unique course. It is part of something called Project Lead the Way. Kelly, for those who might not be familiar with that organization, can you tell us a bit more about what they do?
PLTW is a newly adopted curriculum for us in middle school. It has existed in high school courses and in some other courses, I believe at Challenger Middle School or high school. But we just got it this year. Our teachers went through nearly 100 hours professional development over the summer to get ready for 3 exciting PLTW courses. Medical Detectives is one of them.
That is all super awesome. We're going to go around the table again, and Hannah, I'll start with you. Can you tell our listeners about a case that you all have worked on in class?
One of my favorite cases that we worked on in this class has to be my case with Henry. One thing I loved about it was getting to work with new people and learning what it's like to be a real nurse. We learned about it by figuring out things like his symptoms, a treatment plan, additional information, and lastly, his diagnosis. But we also got to play it out like a real nurse. We got to do things like ask our patients questions and wear things like real nurses' coats and headpieces. How many teachers do you know that do that?
Yasmin, what about you? Do you remember a case that kind of jumped out at you as a especially interesting one?
A case that I remember that we did in class was probably Cooper. He was one of the first actual patients we had to do. I remember having to figure out his symptoms and how it could potentially have been transmitted to him. I even remember writing additional information and checking his respiratory rate, blood pressure, and lastly, like temperature stuff. And I was able to figure out that if it was high or if it was low, what he could have had. And I think that what really first made me feel interested in this class because I've never really done anything like this in a class, and I think I found it fun having to act like I have a patient.
I was going to say, when we ask about cases, you all are saying names, like people's names are the cases. I think that's probably a really fun way to get into learning. Lyric, let's go over to you.
One of the cases that I did, her name was Ariana. I think that she had salmonella. It was really fun. At first, I didn't understand it until Miss Evans made us write how you can get certain diseases and stuff like that, and then it kind of helped me remember. And yeah.
So, Kyler, we already heard your favorite case, but I did want to ask you about something else. And I understand it's not just about reading information from a paper and then diagnosing off that. You're actually role-playing this with several of you dressed as doctors and someone else dressed as a patient. Can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect and what is enjoyable about that?
When we had to act out, it really wasn't realistic, but it kind of did feel like it. For me, I was the note taker. I was taking notes while the question asker was asking questions to the patient. I believe that would probably be kind of realistic to how it would be in an actual medical field, and it's really fun. Each patient did have their own personality, and it was pretty funny to see. Yeah, it was pretty fun to act everything out. So.
The script as it's written with the PLTW curriculum is just to give them the paperwork and, like you had mentioned, to just, take all this information, synthesize it, and come up with a diagnosis. But I knew as a teacher, just looking at more paperwork and doing that wouldn't be as engaging or enjoyable. So I thought, why not make them dress up? And so we did this kind of role play situation where all the students that were playing the role of the doctors got to put on medical lab gowns. I made cute little badge IDs with said Spanaway Medical School on it and attached it to their little doctor's coats. We had to clip them in the back because they were so giant. And we also had all the students wear these blue kind of like what surgeons wear for like medical procedures, just so that they can feel like in the role. And then they had to act in a professional manner. I made them button their lab coats, make their collars pop right, because they needed, once those coats were on, to be professional, like a medical professional would be. And then the patient, we had patient gowns donated by Yasmin's mom because she works in the medical field. And then we even set up like a little background to make it look like they were in a doctor's office. We had a table for the exam table that our patients laid on. So we tried to really ham it up to make it a little bit more engaging and exciting. And students got to go up one at a time in groups to go through that procedure and process. And they really enjoyed watching their classmates up there.
It sounds like it also made it really memorable as well, which I think is really amazing. Kelly, you've been teaching for how long?
17 years.
17 years. So what actually motivated you to pursue a career in teaching and specifically teaching CTE?
Teaching actually wasn't my first career choice. Funnily enough, I wanted to be a pediatrician when I was a young child, but as I was working as a lifeguard, found out I was deathly allergic to latex, and at that time there was no real options in the medical career field for latex-free products, so that kind of killed that ambition and dream. Then I decided I was maybe going to pursue a career in the military, but that didn't go the way I wanted it to go either, and then I fell into teaching after that. I had actually worked as a elementary school teacher, then moved myself up to middle school and really, really enjoyed middle school. They were just a whole different breed. And then decided all of us needed to take like 15 STEM clock hours to keep our certification. And at that point, I was teaching science, just regular straight A amplified science, 7th grade at Elk Plain. And I took a STEM course, and I just absolutely loved it. My facilitator was fantastic. I spoke with her afterwards about what I could do to potentially be a facilitator of those clock hours myself because I had so much fun. And then I started doing that, and I started working with OSPI in the state to facilitate those clock hours for other teachers. And then pretty soon somebody in the districts was like, hey, Kelly, have you ever heard of something called CTE? Which I literally had no idea what that was. And somebody talked to me about it, and I think that was Tanya Nieramore. And she got me into this Bates program where I got my CTE certification, and I have been teaching CTE ever since.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm sure your students are glad that you've landed here in this medical detectives course. And when I learned about this course, one of the things that immediately popped into my head was the TV show House. I don't know, that's dating me a little bit, and I'm sure these kids have no idea what that is. But it's a kind of medical detective show. And it got me thinking, if you were on a medical detective TV show and you got to pick any fictional character to be your partner, who would it be and why? And let's go around the horn and we'll find out. Hannah, what do you think?
If I had a choice, I would pick Dr. Nefario from Despicable Me because he's very smart, sneaky, and patient.
That's a fantastic choice.
I had a lot of thoughts in my head of who you all would be choosing. Dr. Nefario is not on my list, but I love that answer. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yasmin, how about you?
A character I would pick would definitely be Perry the Platypus. I say this because he could be like my sidekick. I have the brains and he will have the detective skills, so I think we would work very well together.
Okay, I didn't think anybody was going to defeat Dr. Nefario, but Perry the Platypus, he is a semi-aquatic, egg-laying mammal of action from Phineas and Ferb. Great choice. How about you, Lyric?
It would either be Batman because he saves people and he is selfless and he protects people from harm. And if I couldn't pick him, then I'd probably pick Edna from Incredibles.
Batman, that's heavy hitters. That's when you really need to bring out the kind of heavyweights. So another great choice. Kyler, what about you? Who's joining you? Who's your sidekick?
For me, my sidekick would be Sherlock Holmes. As most people know, Sherlock Holmes is a famous fictional detective. He's known for his high IQ, extensive knowledge, and his ability to connect the dots. All of these traits could help in the medical field as well to diagnose certain patients as fast as possible.
Oh, Sherlock would be the best. So he could be your Watson. Sherlock could be your very own Watson. That'd be cool.
See, that's opposite how I would do it. Sherlock was my first choice, but then I wouldn't have to do anything. He could just do the work, and I would help take the credit and write the story afterwards. Kelly, how about you?
I had a little fun with this question, and I probably put in a little too much thought, but I originally and only thought of Dora the Explorer, of course, because everybody knows and loves Dora. First of all, Dora is incredibly curious. She's constantly asking questions. She's very observant of the world around her. She always wants to find solutions to problems, and that's really key in being a good medical detective because you have to be able to ask detailed questions to learn about patient signs and symptoms. Dora is also really keen on problem solving. Anytime she comes up against an obstacle, like crossing a river or losing an item, she will stop at nothing until she solves that problem. So these critical thinking skills is going to help Dora and me analyze patients' test results so that we can determine the best course of treatments. So Dora is my go-to for my sidekick.
Another fantastic animated answer. I love it. And Dora is a very big proponent of staying off your phones. Swiper, no swiping? Nobody? Okay, maybe a couple of soft laughs there.
Doug, as always, I can count on you for a horrible pun, but thank you all for showing up and for being part of the show today. Hannah, Yasmin, Lyric, Kyler, and of course, our host, Kelly Evans. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again to all our guests today, and we will be back next week with a very special Thanksgiving episode of the podcast. Enjoy your week.